Hello, everybody. My name is Lisa Prue Spellman. I am a member of the Sikanji Oyate, who reside on the Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Dakota. I am also a journalist and worked for 13 years at the World Herald, the largest newspaper in Nebraska. I now work in public relations at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, and I still continue to tell stories just in a different way. At the World Herald, I told stories about families and family life. And at the Med Center, I tell stories about some of the incredible clinical and work being done, as scientific research being done, and all the incredible stories that have come out of the Med Center recently, especially as it relates to the pandemic and the work being done on that front. Today, I would like to talk to you a little bit about communicating your research to the broader audience and how important it is, especially in this day and age, to do so. Communicating science in a post-truth era can be very difficult. There's a lot of fake news. A lot of people go on the internet and believe the first thing they read. So it's really important that scientists get the support they need to be more prominent as communicators, more strategic in how they develop relationships with the media, and also in engaging more with the general public. This has been no more important than now in this day and age with what is happening with the pandemic and the coronavirus. When I thought of this presentation today, I thought about a really good example, more recent than not, the use of hydroxychloroquine to treat patients who have coronavirus, or even maybe to prevent it. In early May, the president announced that he's taking hydroxychloroquine, or had been taking hydroxychloroquine, to prevent coronavirus. However, I think that was a rush to judgment. By June 16th, the FDA had revoked emergency use for hydroxychloroquine because they found it to be useless against COVID-19. There's not a lot of research backing the use of hydroxychloroquine to treat this virus. It's a brand new virus. We don't know much about it. So, you know, it's really important that we follow what the scientists say, and your research is more important than ever on topics like this and other things. Remdesivir was approved for clinical trial use back in February in patients who tested positive for COVID-19, and by mid-May, they had released a preliminary report showing it is effective in treating patients with COVID-19. I give you the link on the PowerPoint to the New England Journal of Medicine article about the use of remdesivir. Dr. Andre Khalil at UNMC was a part of that clinical trial. We had patients who were staying in our biocontainment unit from the Diamond Princess cruise ship that was docked off the coast of Japan, who tested positive for COVID-19, who signed up for that clinical trial, and who benefited from that. And of course, then the scientists and we all benefit from that knowledge. Remdesivir is still being studied, but it is being used also to treat patients who have test positive for COVID-19 and are struggling. So it's more important than ever that we communicate good science, that the scientists who are out there are able to communicate that with the general public so that people don't make a rush to judgment and use something that could be harmful to them. And we can become our own advocates as scientists. We can use social media platforms, blogs, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Reddit, all those different, Facebook, all those different kinds of avenues to promote your work to the public. Something that we do at UNMC is called a Science Cafe. We have one every month. We've had them virtually recently, but we were hosting them at the Slowdown, which is a bar in downtown Omaha. These are 21 and older events. They're held in the evenings on a Tuesday night. And a scientist comes in and just has a very casual conversation about the work that they're doing on any particular topic. And it opens up the dialogue to the general public to ask questions and to really engage with that scientist and really see that this isn't, you know, the stereotypical person with Bunsen burners and pipettes and incubators and stuff hidden away in some locked room, but that they're just regular people out trying to find answers. So that is another way, speaking to policymakers and engaging them about what you're doing. Talking to our state senators is something that we do regularly, and engage with them to tell them what kind of work's being done at the medical center, why it's important, why they should care. And then public engagement improves science literacy as long as you listen as much as you speak. So waiting for those questions, really talking to people in lay language, and really actually speaking to them as if you were talking to, you know, your auntie or your uncle or your cousin, somebody who isn't in the same field as you, but really helping them understand what it is you do. Think about that when you talk to any kind of leader in any kind of political position or anything like that, because they're not scientists, so they may not understand the language, but they are interested in what you have to say. And so it's important to engage with the public as much as possible to educate people. The next slide is a kind of it's a cartoon that I really love because it talks about the science news cycle. So it hits on a couple fronts for me. One is the old journalistic news cycle, where we as journalists have to take what it is that you're doing as a scientist and explain it to the public in a way that they'd understand. And so as a PR rep, I do that. In fact, I just wrote about a couple research papers, and sending that out to different news organizations so that the journalists get it in a succinct manner, because we can't go on 12 pages. It's just got to be, usually we typically try to keep our releases to 1 page. So there's a lot of information to get across in just a few words. And in this miscommunication cartoon, it really shows that, you know, you've got grandma wearing a foil hat to ward off whatever it was that got miscommunicated. And so it's just kind of a funny reminder that like telephone or anything else, you know, you can pass the word out, and then down the road, it just kind of gets garbled. And so the message may not always be clear. So it's important for you to be out there speaking about your science as much as possible, in lay terms again. And we're going to talk about that. Some of the things that you can use to describe your science. Similes and metaphors are great. So using like and as for comparisons. Metaphors state comparisons directly. You can read those. And then I really like the PRISM Readability Toolkit. It's a free 81-page handbook that includes a selection of commonly used medical terms, research jargon, and other complex words with suggestions for plain language alternatives. You know, you would think that something as simple as saying that, you know, you have a clinical trial that people need to pay attention to, but people don't always understand what that means. What is a clinical trial? What are we talking about? So using as simple of language as possible at a 6th grade level really is what they suggest. And the PRISM Readability Toolkit, if you just Google online, PRISM Readability Toolkit, you'll find it. It's fantastic. Lots of great examples in there, lots of great alternatives. It makes me think of the Eat This, Not That booklet that's out of what to eat at fast food restaurants if you're trying to count your calories. So it's a great little guide. Another thing, and for me as a journalist, I'm always telling stories. And so I had a research article, and you can read on the screen, this TGFB, you know, crazy palate development in children. Well, basically it causes cleft lip and palate in children. And I had to tell this particular scientist's story. And so what I did, even though he was really excited, his journal was getting published in an article in a major publication. He was very excited about his research, and he was throwing out all these terms and jargon and everything. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Tell me why you're doing this. Why is this important to you? And he told me about this flood in Bangladesh, where he's from. And he was, he had gone to help, and he saw so many children with this deformity, and it just really, you know, pulled at his heartstrings. And so he thought he was going to be a dentist, and he decided, no, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to study what's happening in the mouths of these children. Why are they getting cleft lip and palate? And so then here he is. He's received this grant from the National Institutes of Health for $1.8 million to continue his research. And for me, that story really spoke volumes, and I was able to talk about this TGFB stuff in a way that, you know, I still mention the science, I still put that in there, but I was able to capture it in a way, encapsulate it in a way that anybody could understand. You know, you're seeing children impacted by something that really has a huge impact on their appearance, their nutrition, their overall well-being, how they feel about themselves, and how do we make an impact? How do we change that? And that's what really made him go into the area of science that he's doing today. And that's how I chose to tell that story. And I think it resonates a little better with the audience, with the lay public, with the state senator, with our aunties and uncles, our friends and relatives, than saying, well, you know, Dr. Nashad is taking TGFB and he's et cetera, et cetera. So I think you can see what I mean there. When you think in terms of talking to people about your science, think in terms of the elevator pitch. How would you explain what you're doing to others in 30 seconds or less? Again, we talk about clinical language and the research jargon. That's very important in the lab when you're talking to your peers and your colleagues. But for a broader audience, you have to humanize science. Again, that story that I told about Dr. Nashad and why he went into science. Making a statement. Storytelling is universal and powerful, but here's the problem. Therefore, we need to. And what problem are you trying to solve? How are you solving it? How are you going about solving it? So again, the children with the cleft lip and palate, that's the problem. Now, what am I going to do about it? How am I solving it? And then you can get into some of the nitty-gritty details of your work, of your research, of your science, without overwhelming people with a lot of clinical language, a lot of jargon that kind of, you know, turns them off, and they kind of quit listening. Now, another thing that you need to consider, and we talked about this earlier, is engaging with the media. And so as a public relations professional at UNMC, one of the things that I do is some media training, and I train our clinicians, our professors, our scientists on how to be interviewed by the media. So one of the things to think about is your appearance. If you're going to be talking with a print journalist or on television or radio, it doesn't matter. You still need to dress professionally. How you look matters. Being mindful of distractions, especially if you're on TV or being recorded for broadcast later. Making sure that, you know, your hair is neat, that you don't have a lot of jewelry on, just simple. Keep your jewelry very simple. One bracelet, one ring. Making sure that your teeth are brushed. I know I've watched journalists on TV, news anchors, and if there's one thing off, I think my eye is drawn to that one thing, and I'm trying to figure out, you know, does that anchor know that they have a smudge on their blouse, or do they know that their hair keeps, you know, falling weirdly or whatever? It's those kind of distractions that kind of keep drawing our eye, our mind, our ear away from the message that they're trying to give. Smile, be engaged, lean in, don't fidget. Often when we do media training or we have people being interviewed, we make them sit in chairs that don't swivel, because people generally want to swivel and rock in their chair, and then you can see just now how distracting that is. So making sure that you just, you know, plant your feet firmly on the ground, put your hands in your lap in front of you, smile, have a pleasant look on your face, and just answer the questions as they come. Also, make sure you turn off your cell phone. That can be really distracting. If it rings, especially. Something else that you should make sure that you understand that you are the authority. You know what you're talking about. The journalist has come to interview you about your science, about what you're doing. So speak with authority. Know that journalists will capture what you say, but that it kind of gets condensed down into sound bites that are about 10 to 12 seconds. If you ever watch somebody on television who's been interviewed, and you can see that sometimes they trail off and the anchor's talking over, but they're still showing the person. You can still see them talking, but you've only heard a little bit of what they've said. So make sure that what you say, is what you want people to know. So think in terms of having 2 to 3 talking points ready of the things that you want people to know and the important things. Stick to the facts, never speculate. It's okay to say, I don't know, let me get back to you on that. The journalist would rather have you tell them, hey, I need to find out more information on that, or I don't know, than try to speculate on something or make something up. You can also use that opportunity to bridge and say, that's a good point, or I don't know, let me get back to you on that, but, and then go back into your talking points and really drive those points home of what you want people to know. Listen to the entire statement or question before answering, and making sure that you understand what the journalist is asking you. And then it's okay to pause and then speak. And then again, speak with authority. You know what you're talking about. Also, make sure you enunciate your words, making sure that you speak calmly, slowly, articulately, so that people understand on the other end, whether it's on radio, on television, or just the journalist, the print journalist who's taking notes or maybe recording you to transcribe their notes later to write their story. You could speak up a little bit, but again, remind yourself that you know what you're talking about. Often reporters aren't going to ask you about things that they haven't come to interview you about, so they're not going to throw a curveball at you. Most journalists, I think unless you're a politician, then they might try to catch you with something else. But otherwise, most of the time, with scientists, what I've seen with our scientists, when a journalist comes to talk to them about cleft lip and palate, that's what they've come to talk to them about. They know you're the authority and they want to hear what you have to say. I hope all of these tips are helpful. I hope that you guys continue to do incredible work and incredible science in these trying times. I hope all of you are staying well, staying healthy, and staying safe. Thank you so much for having me today. Have a great day, a great week. Kalamya.